computers, cell phones, televisions, smartphones, laptops, electronics, devices, monitors, incineration, components, CPUs, old, broken, cameras, used, electrical, mobile, obsolete, PVC, lead, landfill, console, smelt, e-scrap and toxic all add up to Table of contents of e-waste. First is the introduction, then theories and concepts, which is composed of e-wastes. What are e-wastes? What's in electronic devices? And where do they go? Next is the problems, and then solutions, followed by the conclusion, and finally the summary, not forgetting the references.
Overload, 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 overload.
Rapid uptake of information technology around the world, coupled with the advent of new design and technology at regular intervals, is causing the early obsolescence of many gadgets. We all know the benefits of electrical and electronic gadgets, but we don't know nearly as much about the adverse effects they have once we throw them away. According to businessman Robert Barron, all those old cell phone chargers you chucked into a bin, the old monitor you just threw away, and the ancient printer that you dumped are all in a landfill somewhere, polluting our planet. Around 14 million junked mobile phones reach our nation's landfills each year, releasing an astounding 80,000 lbs of highly toxic lead. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) most recent e-waste report shows that we got rid of trash or recycled 142,000 computers every day. The EPA estimated that 29.9 million desktops and 12 million laptops were discarded in a year. Every year 20 to 50 million tons of e-waste is generated worldwide. The electronic waste trail, according to the executive director of Basel Action Network, Jim Puckett. The dirty little secret is that when you take your electronic waste to a recycler, instead of throwing it in a trash can, about 80% of the material very quickly finds itself on a container ship going to a country like Ghana, Nigeria, Pakistan, India, and China, where very dirty things happen to it. How do e-wastes harm the environment? E-wastes when burned or recycled pose a very huge threat and consequently a significant damage to the environment given the high toxicity of components. Toxic chemicals in electronics products can leach into the land over time or are released into the atmosphere, impacting nearby communities and the environment.
Look at those computers.
Electronic waste is defined as obsolete, broken or end-of-life electrical or electronic devices. Electronic waste now makes up 5% of all municipal solid waste worldwide, nearly the same amount as all plastic packaging, but it is much more hazardous. Not only developed countries generate e-waste, Asia discards an estimated 12 million tons each year. E-waste is now the fastest growing component of the municipal solid waste stream because people are upgrading their mobile phones, computers, televisions, audio equipment and printers more frequently than ever before. Mobile phones and computers are causing the biggest problem because they are replaced most often. Electronic devices are a complex mixture of several hundred materials. The mobile phone, for example, contains 500 to 1,000 components. Computers and cell phones are a complex mixture of several hundred components, many of which contain heavy metals and hazardous chemicals. Discover what dangerous substances are hidden in many computers and cell phones by clicking the colored buttons. Many nations either lack adequate regulations applying to this relatively new waste stream, or lack effective enforcement of new e-waste regulation. Occupational health and safety agencies are not actively overseeing the exposures occurring in the e-recycling industry. In many jurisdictions, it is still perfectly legal to dispose of toxic e-waste in non-hazardous waste landfills and incinerators, depositing lead, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, etc. into inappropriate disposal facilities, and failing to reclaim valuable materials. This is largely the result of rapidly changing manufacturing processes and the chemicals employed within certain sectors. Some potential contaminants in e-waste are uncommon, even in other contaminated sites. Consequently, there has been little work done on their environmental effects. The cocktail effect of the interaction of chemicals can be greater than the effect of the chemicals individually. If individual components in a mixture do not each separately have harmful effects, the mixture itself may produce harmful effects. There are examples of the impact of mixed chemical exposure such as to multiple pesticides, diesel fumes, and other fumes and mixed solvents. E-waste imposes many challenges on the recycling industry as it contains many different materials that are mixed, bolted, screwed, snapped, glued or soldered together. Toxic materials are attached to non-toxic materials, which makes separation of materials for reclamation difficult. When burned, even worse toxins can form such as dioxins and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, some of the most toxic substances known to humankind. Until recently, manufacturers gave little attention to the idea of eliminating toxic materials in their products. Where formal facilities exist, measures can be taken to improve health and safety during exposure to most heavy metals and other chemicals. Such measures include provision of an enclosed and fitted work area with exhaust ventilation. When adequate ventilation is impossible to maintain, respirators should be carried and air should be sampled to determine substance concentrations. E-waste-related toxic effects can be exacerbated throughout a person's lifetime and across generations. E-waste therefore constitutes a significant global environmental and health emergency, with implications far broader than occupational exposure and involving vulnerable groups and generations to come. These children are more vulnerable to the threats posed by informal waste activities, and effects including more fatal and non-fatal accidents, permanent disabilities and ill health, and psychological, behavioral or emotional damage that can often be more devastating and lasting. Knowledge of where your used electronics will go is the key to responsible recycling. Watch out for any recycler who ships discarded electronics to developing countries for processing. Avoiding sending garbage overseas lessens greenhouse gas emissions and helps protect workers and the environment in developing countries. In 2006, One Earth magazine reported that more than 80% of the world's e-waste is transported to Asia, and most of it ends up in China. Workers are exposed to toxic substances in disassembling consumer electronics by hand. These substances also contaminate groundwater. There are many ways to recycle used electronics: through charitable programs, resellers, retailer and manufacturer take-back programs, and free collection events, but there is no real assurance that these e-wastes will not go to an unscrupulous recycler. Be responsible and look for an eSteward certification. The eSteward recyclers are the most trustworthy recyclers that have been independently verified to handle e-waste in the most globally responsible way, using safe technologies and careful protections for workers. eSteward certification is the only marketplace solution supported by the environmental community and responsible electronics recycling companies. It is emerging as the leading global program designed to enable individuals and organizations who dispose of their old electronic equipment to easily identify recyclers that adhere to the highest standard of environmental responsibility and worker protection. For more about eSteward certification, visit www.estewards.org. The toxic substances in electronic products might go in landfills. Donating or selling used electronics are great ways to extend their use and keep them out of landfill. Some services provide second-hand computers to school or non-profits, so functional old computers may become of valuable use to others. Make sure that whomever you donate your used electronics will use an eSteward certification. The best option is to look for a recycler who is part of the eSteward network. If there is no eSteward near you, try the manufacturer's take-back programs. Still can't find a convenient location? This is only a demo version. Try retailers like Staples and Best Buy. They take back electronic products for free recycling. Self-own recycling. This is only a demo version. Self-own recycling is easy, since you can mail them back for free to some recyclers. Capstone Wireless and Call2Recycle are two good options with companies that have signed the eSteward pledge not to export e-waste to developing countries. The concern associated with e-wastes is the toxic chemicals and heavy metals that may leak from these trashes, causing high risks and hazards on health and the environment. Mercury, lead, cadmium, and lithium are some of the highly toxic and dangerous chemicals that can leach into landfills and spread throughout. These specific hazards is possible, although certain measures are required. One solution is the recycling of e-wastes. Recycling mostly benefits developing countries, since this is where old products of the likes go. A company with eSteward certification guarantees the safe and responsible reusage of e-wastes. It assures that the organization and/or company adheres to the highest commitment for environmental responsibility and worker protection. design for environment and life cycle assessment are also two concepts that tackle e-wastes and support minimal materials intensity for low toxicity levels. Proper procedures in handling these materials can also improve and maintain the preservation of the environment. These include reducing the number of component parts, and proper labeling of the wastes. When properly implemented, a great fraction of the overall possible environmental degradation may be downgraded. The pollution and soil contamination will considerably go down. Total or close to zero effects to society is impossible, but the proper key in here is the proper handling and reusage. Lessening the health threats and risky wastes imposed like birth defects, blood and respiratory diseases that greatly affect the children will depend on our own practices regarding these modern kinds of litters. In the end, we primary use and benefit these technological advancements for our modern society imposes, and every goodwill we get from it also got the potential to strike back into us. Sadly, what the society might get in the end might be of too much risk than originally planned and intended. Flip the iPad to read the summary of eWastes. Thank you. This project was brought to you by Group 6.